You're my first veteran on this podcast. You were telling me that you got into Stanford, you got into Sloan, and you were saying something about Wharton. What happened?
Dude, I just got rejected from Wharton. There's no way I'm getting into Stanford. And then I'm sitting in a meeting with the guy I was interning for. A Palo Alto number flashes across my phone screen. You're not going to call me to reject me, right? And I pick up the phone and someone from admissions, hey, Pat, this is so-and-so. How are you doing? And I told him, I was like, honestly, I just got rejected from Wharton this morning. So it's been a rough day, and oh my gosh, I promise you this is a good phone call. It will only take 5 minutes, and wave of emotion, it hit me like
a lot of veterans out there who are thinking the same thing. They want to apply for an MBA program. It feels like, okay, profiles are pretty similar. How do you differentiate yourself? Every Odyssey starts at home, and where does yours start?
My home is right outside the Twin Cities, Minnesota area. Born and raised in Eden Prairie. Grew up there, mom, dad, younger brother, 2 years younger than I am. And just, still to this day, very much cherish the Twin Cities area. I always love going back. Just love to be a kid and kind of flex the creativity.
So where did you go to college?
University of St. Thomas in St. Paul, Minnesota.
But before going to college, or by the time you went to college, had you traveled abroad?
My parents, they love to travel. So I'd been, to a couple of different places throughout my younger years, really like middle school and high school. I think at that point I had been to, like prior to college, like Italy and Spain, and then maybe, Mexico and Canada.
Okay.
But yeah, really like kind of overseas, like across, the Atlantic or Pacific. It was, just like Italy and Spain, I'm pretty sure.
You said you haven't moved around that much, like barely at all, yeah? And then
not growing up, no.
Not growing up. And then, I know what happened later, but not growing up. And then you also decide to go to college in that like same area and the same vicinity. Let's zoom in a little bit on that. Why was that? Like, what did you not want to go explore a different part of the country, a different part of the world? Like, how was that decision made?
Yeah, great question. So I went to a small private high school, St. Thomas Academy in Mendota Heights, Minnesota. Absolutely loved it. Wouldn't change it for the world, but my graduating class was 133 guys. So the high school I went to, it was all male, it was Catholic, it was military and college prep. Just a very unique but incredible experience. And even to this day, like, the guys I went through high school with, some of them I'm still super, super close with, and others, I see them here and there on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever. Like, could go out, grab a beer, grab a sandwich, whatever, and pick up like
as if no time has passed.
As if no time has passed. Just exceptional.
Yeah.
And then the college I went to, the University of St. Thomas. So back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, these two schools used to be a single school.
Oh, okay.
And then
Understood.
In the early 1900s. They split off. There was a high school and there was a college. So my high school was very much a feeder program, kind of unofficially.
It was a natural transition for you.
Yeah, and I had a really, really good core group of friends, and I'm very close to my parents, and I love the Twin Cities. I had a very good, nucleus and support system there. So I looked at other programs, specifically, kind of in the Midwest, but that was just what was really the most organic and kind of natural fit. And so that's what I did, and wouldn't change it for the world.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah,
and then you alluded to the fact that you were in the college, and then you chose to go through this program called ROTC.
So a little bit of context is I grew up with a family that has some military history, throughout our family history, and so I always just felt compelled to serve and join the military in some capacity. And ended up choosing to do ROTC in college. So ROTC is a program that you do at a non-military academy, and it's the Reserve Officer Training Corps model. And what it does is, over the 3 or 4 years that you do it, you get, very similar, training to what you would get as far as like what you're learning, what you're doing, what they're kind of building you to become as far as a leader, so that when you finish that, you commission as an officer into any one of the services. So you can do Army ROTC, Navy, Air Force, etc. And then you either commission as a regular active duty officer, National Guard officer, or a reserve officer. And so I commissioned as an active duty officer, meaning that post university, I would go on to serve in the U.S. Army as my full-time job. And that's the next chapter of that story.
And then you finish college. You decide you want to go to the U.S. Army. What was it for you? Like, what was that spark or the reason?
You're you're young, you don't have a
Yeah.
lot of life experience, you don't really know what's what, so just a little bit of like uncomfortableness jumping into that with no clear answer. But I think like the bigger appeal to me was just the challenge of it, and that's kind of multifaceted. One, just like I think just an awesome opportunity to join a cause and a team that's bigger than oneself. That was really really appealing to me, especially playing sports growing up and
Yes.
particularly team sports. Yeah, I love all the attributes and the values and kind of lessons learned from that, and I thought it very much carried over and was exacerbated at a much higher
Yeah.
and more important degree in the military. So that was really really awesome. But too, just the challenge of it, physically, mentally, emotionally.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
can I set my sights on whatever goal kind of down the road, whether that's an experience or a job function or maybe like a challenging course or something, and can I put in the work to go achieve that?
Yeah.
And
I can imagine.
yeah, I love to push myself and kind of push past my boundaries, see where they are, and just incrementally try and
Yeah.
improve those, so to speak. So yeah, just it checked a lot of box for me, and that's why I did it. Yeah.
You're my first veteran on this podcast, and
Oh
that's
boy.
very exciting for me. But yeah, so I have a lot of questions. I'm sure the audience has have tons of questions, so we might get into those questions. But now, tell me, after college, you joined the U.S. Army.
Mhm.
How does that look? Like, what do you do? Like, what is the first day like?
My experiences are my own. Caleb and Lincoln and all the other vets here and abroad. They have their own individual experiences, so the flavors may vary, and there's a ton of really awesome people who have done a lot of awesome things. So my snapshot is just one of many.
Yeah.
But that said, yeah, so I commissioned as an officer, and right away I knew, just based on kind of culminating the program and the administrative process that goes into really setting you up for what you're going to do next, that I would be going and serving as an active duty armor officer, excuse me, and then I would be going to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. But before that, I had to go to, at the time it was Fort Benning, now Fort Moore, Georgia, for my initial officer training. So within a couple weeks of graduating, I had to move down to Fort Benning, Georgia, and then kicked off my basic officer armor course down there, basic officer leader course. BOLIC is what it's called. And that was, I think, 5 months or so. And then I did a couple other courses on the back end of
So it
that.
kind of gets you up to speed.
It's
Yeah.
essentially the basic training, so to speak, for
Yes.
officers, and allows them to become qualified within their respective branch, so that when
Yes.
they show up to their unit, um, you know, all the stuff and things that they need to do, they're prepared to do that. The
They're
first
there.
year
Yeah.
it was of the Army specifically, it was like just schools, training courses to get me, qualified to do certain things. That way, when I showed up, to my unit, I could immediately get plugged into whatever role they had for me.
How long were you in the service before leaving?
I was in the Army for just over 10 years.
Just over 10 years.
Yeah.
And the first year of it was spent on a lot of those trainings and basically getting you to a baseline
Yeah,
and all that stuff.
exactly. The first year was just all courses, and then over the course of the entire career, I did other courses here and there, but that is like the first step for all officers. You have to go to your basic officer leader course training, and then from there you go to your unit.
Well, once you're in, like a year into your training and all that stuff,
Yeah.
from there onwards, the next 9 years of your career, was it up to you to kind of design it, or a lot of it is just told what you have to do, or this is just a standard path and you have to just go through it and there's not much free room or free hand you have?
You definitely have more say in it than I think people realize. So once you get into your specific branch, for me, for example, it was armor. There is a predetermined pathway there,
Mm-hmm.
and that, for a lot of officers is, your first couple of promotions are pretty routine, and time based, so to speak. And with those, you have to go to certain courses. For captains, it would be the captain's career course.
Yes.
But at a certain mark, really around like the 4 year mark or so, you have a little bit more optionality. And for many officers, that's also when most can start considering whether to stay in or get out of the service. For me, I kind of looked ahead, and similarly to my undergraduate experience, just didn't really know what I would do on the outside of the military.
Yes.
And at the time, I had a lot of friends who, very much like me, kind of type A, competitive, really love to challenge themselves. And so we're looking ahead to going the Special Forces route, the U.S. Army Special Forces route. And so I felt the same way. And that was my first opportunity to put in an application to go to their assessment and selection course, which is where they do a 21-day course or so to see if you have what it takes. And should you pass that, you go into the qualification course. But if I didn't get picked up, which I did, I would have pivoted and figured something out. I don't really know. I was kind of putting a lot of my eggs into that one
Yes.
basket.
Yes, I can
Yeah.
imagine. So this milestone was like 4 years into it or 5 years into your service?
That would have
Roughly?
been like around 4 years
Yeah.
is when
If you put yourself like back in those times, you go into the service with a certain mentality, some
Mhm.
expectations that it's gonna be like ABCD, yeah. And then you go do it, and you spend some 3-4 years there, all the training, all the things that you had done. Like, how did that match up to your expectations? Were they met? Were they higher? What was surprising for you about the service and about yourself, like your character, what you discovered about yourself?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question and a challenging one. I would say that, I mean, it's hard because you go in, you think one thing, and of course certain things change, and that's with everything. I would say it met my expectation in that it was challenging, and I learned a lot, and I grew a lot, and I credit that to having great support systems around me. Of course, my family and friends back home, but specifically within the military, I had great officers, great warrants, and especially great enlisted soldiers, around me, and leaders around me to help develop me. Kind of one of the primary goals or responsibilities for that enlisted leader is to develop that officer, and prepare them for their next position. So my first role as a platoon leader, I had a fantastic platoon sergeant. So he was just an incredible, outstanding leader who knew a ton of, well, first and foremost, like, great person, like tremendous character, absolutely excellent person and role model. But yeah, to my point, he also was just phenomenally knowledgeable. Just knew everything there was to know about the specific role that we need to do as individuals, as a team. And he was able to kind of mold me and shape me. And then again, his or her role at that point is to help prepare
Yeah, yeah.
me for the next role.
So was that one of the things that was kind of beyond expectations for you?
Yeah, and that, to your question, was just incredible for me
Yeah,
because it,
yeah.
it allowed me to just really refine myself as not only like an officer but just a leader, as a whole, as a person, and has seen a lot, has done a lot, both professionally and also personally. And so it was just a great way for me to very quickly
Yeah.
mature and grow up. And I think that's one of the benefits of the Army, and that's not specific to being an officer or a platoon leader or
I
whatever.
understand. Yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah.
as a
That's
whole,
the
just,
setup.
yeah, a great way to learn from others and really get that mentorship and that development. And so, yeah, I think that definitely, like, it's something that I knew I would get, but like, to get it real time, like, you don't even realize it's
Yeah,
happening until
yeah,
you kind of look back and reflect on it,
of course.
and it's like,
Yeah.
holy cow, like that's incredible.
By that time, had you been deployed already, like, or were you always in the U.S.?
I by the time I had,
That you had to go to make a decision about special forces and
yeah, at
not.
that point I had done one deployment with my unit, to Iraq. Yeah, that was like mid 2016 to early 2017.
How long are these deployments typically?
I mean, it varies. At the time, for kind of conventional forces, so to speak, well, at least for our unit, it was 9 months. So yeah, we were in Iraq for 9 months, a little over, maybe, with transit time.
Was it tough?
Yeah, I mean, it was challenging. 9 months is a long time, and our unit, we bounced around a little bit. We had different responsibilities, different roles, but in a way that was kind of great just because it broke up some of the monotony of some of the stuff we were doing compared to, other units and whatnot. And all in all, just like a great opportunity to work with awesome international partners and learn a lot and just like accomplish great things and, hopefully, do some good in the world.
I can imagine that.
Yeah.
I can imagine. And then you come back, and then you have that kind of fork in front of you. Yeah, what am I going to do? I'm going to stay. I'm going to leave. And you decide to stay. Not only stay, but go through the special forces round, which sounds very cool from the outside. It was cool in the inside.
I mean, yeah, like it was really cool. Wait,
I have to stop you. Like from what you see portrayed, like through media and Hollywood and stuff, yeah, they make it sound really cool. Was it as cool on the inside?
I mean, yeah. Like I got to do things and experience things with my team and kind of our team that is just so incredibly unique. Not from just like the perspective of what we were doing, but also just the feelings, the emotion, like the closeness and the bond. It's truly that that brotherhood, that sisterhood. So really, really cool there. But I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and that's not just for the special forces community. I mean, that's the military in general.
Of course,
Tons of commitment and sacrifice. But especially when you look into some of those kind of other pathways or opportunities within the military that you have to volunteer for and try out for, there's additional sacrifice on top of that. But again, it's a personal choice for every individual. That was particularly something that I was interested in. But again, everyone in the service, they're serving in a capacity that's important and needed. And we can't operate as a military without everyone.
I can imagine. I know you haven't done West Point, but I'm sure you have watched the Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah, classic movie.
It's a classic movie. Yeah.
I have family that went to West Point though.
Yeah. So would you say that is kind of accurate? Like that kind of a drill sergeant, like very on point, loud, pretty tough.
Yeah, our cadre for some of the special forces junctures or training kind of pipeline material, they're challenging, but I mean it's designed to be that way. It's designed to stress you out, to push you out of your comfort zone, and really help you identify what your limits are and push past that. And then also too, just to give you a lot of external stress and other things to think about, just to see how you process that, in real time, so that come actual operations, you've been through stressful environments, you've been able to push yourself.
You've been there, you've done it.
Of stress, very little sleep, not eating well, having to make decisions with a lot of physical and mental fatigue.
And I want to zoom in on that.
Yeah.
What was the most challenging physical hurdle you went through?
Oh gosh.
Like your most challenging physical moment. They're like, Jesus, why am I even here?
Oh man. I would say there were a couple ones that come to mind. So first, I mean, this is like very on in my early career. U.S. Army Ranger School, that was tough, but I mean, that is where they really they crank the dial up there for sure. They're really trying to stress you out. It's a little sleep, it's a little food, it's long movements with a heavy rucksack, and that was kind of a slap in the face. Like, holy cow, this is hard. But a lot of it is just like such a blur because again, you're not sleeping a lot, you're not eating a lot, you're not really processing it. You're just kind of on autopilot mode, so to speak. So I would say that's a little bit more unique. I would say as far as what I did within like the special forces, assessment and selection course, as well as the actual qualification course, you definitely get a little bit more sleep there and you're fed a little bit better because, they do want to challenge you, but they want you to be, I don't want to say your optimal self, but
functional.
A little bit more functional just to see if you do have what it takes. So I would say one of the more challenging parts was in the assessment and selection course. You have to do a land navigation component where you're given, a map, you're given various points and you have to go find them over really, really long movements. And the whole time, you have your rucksack on that weighs, however many pounds, it's like 80 to 110 pounds, something ridiculous like
that.
but yeah, you start, pretty late at night, and there were definitely times where I'm fumbling around the woods and I trip over a log or a branch. And at that point, we call it like turtle shelling, where,
Yeah.
your momentum carries you forward, but you have all this heavy weight on your
Yeah.
back. And so you land up on your back,
Yeah.
and you're just kind of, sweating
Legs in the
around, trying
air.
to figure out what's going on. And you just have this like inner thought of like, what the heck am I doing right now? It's just like 4 a.m. in the morning, and I'm in the middle of nowhere looking for this, dang point.
Yeah.
Frustrating,
I
but I
can
mean,
imagine.
it's a good time to look back on and kind of laugh about.
Yeah.
And then, there's a couple other, challenging components that are just like pretty physically demanding.
I can
But
imagine.
I think one of the fun parts about it is, I mean, this is uh, just like the shared misery.
Yeah.
It sounds strange if you haven't really like experienced
Yeah.
it, but I mean, I'm sure like very similar in other jobs or
Yeah.
functions. Just like kind of those crucible moments where, as a team, it's like,
Trauma
okay,
bonding.
yeah, this kind of sucks,
Yeah.
but everyone's in it together.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of laugh about it and help each other get through it. And then,
Yeah.
of course, you get to the other side and you look back on it, and it's just like,
Yeah.
I can't believe we did that. That
I
was
can
so
imagine.
goofy. Yeah.
How about emotional? Like, what was the most challenging moment? It could have been here in homeland, or it could have been abroad, overseas. Like, did you have any of those moments that were emotionally were like, it's this tough?
Yeah, I would say the most emotionally challenging thing in the military I dealt with, personally, outside of course, what's happening with, folks or teammates or other service members. But like for me, I think back to my last deployment in 2023, to Syria. Just a challenging kind of mission, all in all. Not just for like my team, but everyone over there. Challenging times, and then I was going through a lot, personally, going through a lot professionally, for various reasons, and kind of looking ahead, just trying to find out, what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be, what I wanted my next journey to be. So, trying to really like give myself and be fully present, so I could give my all to, my teammates, my unit, my country, and our international partners, what we really needed to do over there, as well as personally take care of myself. That was a really really hard balance. Looking back, I probably would have done things differently. But I'm very, very thankful in that I had, awesome mentors, above me, alongside me, below me, awesome, awesome teammates to support me and be there for me. And then, back home, I had, my family, and then just some tremendous friends who were
Yeah.
there to be an outlet and provide support, and, just be there to help me vent.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of that. But yeah, it's just, it was tough, but, I look back and, I think, the challenges,
Yeah.
that's where you grow, that's where you learn, that's where you develop. So I'm, in a way thankful for it, because I
Yeah.
think I'm better for it.
I know that there are a few different versions of Army Special Forces, and you were a Green Beret. Did you have a Green Beret?
Yeah, I mean, that's the job. Yeah, when you graduate, you get the Green Beret.
And then you have to wear it, like,
Yeah, it's that's our official headgear.
on daily basis, except for on mission and whatnot, probably.
It depends. Yeah, overseas, excuse me. You're wearing your full kit, so to speak.
Yeah.
So you're not really
More
wearing your Green
tactical.
Beret,
Yeah.
so to speak. But yeah, at home in what we call like the garrison environment, you have your uniform, and then yeah, that's the official headgear that you wear.
It's very interesting for me because growing up, I used to play this fantastic computer game called Commandos,
Okay,
and it
yeah.
was about a bunch of probably real life commandos throughout the Second World War.
Okay.
And then there are, I think, 3 or 4 editions of these games, extremely popular in the world. Like a lot of awards was
I think I
awarded
remember
to
the
them.
game.
Yeah, and in Iran it was also very popular, and then we would play this game. And I think one of the editions was towards the end of the war, and
Okay.
then they capture Paris. They free Paris basically from the Nazi occupation and all that stuff. And one of the main characters, one of the popular characters, is the Green Beret. Is a Green Beret, and he's a real person. And you see real footages of the guy. He's jacked. He's just massive, and he has these sleeves ripped, and he has that Green Beret and this cargo army pants and stuff. And he was my favorite character because he was very tough. He was just big, and he was very good with knife. And like my younger brother and I, we were in love with that guy. So when I first saw you and you were like, I'm a Green Beret, I was like, Jesus, they are real, and it was fantastic. Tell us a little bit more. Like, what is the mission description or job description for Green Berets, and how does that differ to maybe different special forces within the Army?
Yeah, so I mean, it's funny you bring up World War II because that's kind of where the Green Berets trace a lot of their lineage to, and it's been cut and refined over the years. But primarily, Green Berets first and foremost are advisors. That is our role, and we do that in several different ways. But it's really working with international partners of our country's choosing and ensuring there are overlapping and compatible objectives there. To do a variety of things, whether that's kind of on like the special warfare side of things. So, you talk about like unconventional warfare and some of those things, or if it's, actual kind of surgical strike, direct action. But there's a spectrum there, and, core missions that Green Berets, serve with, versus some other special operations forces, the other kind of premier Army special operations forces like U.S. Army Rangers, which are awesome dudes and gals. But those, like the Army Rangers, are very much more focused on like the direct action aspect.
Yes.
But again, like both can do a lot of different things. It's just kind of, what are you specifically trying to accomplish? And that determines, who's used for what. But that's, of course, only the Army flavor. Each component of the military has its own special operations force as well. And we all are very much intertwined and interconnected and work and complement one each other. So, overseas, it's very, very common. And really, it's like the standard to work in kind of like a joint
in
unit.
tandem.
Yeah, where you're interacting with, all kinds of folks. And again, it's the whole, team-based aspect where you each bring to bear some unique or incredible capabilities so that the team as a whole can really function and excel.
I really love that you speak really highly of the other branches and the other members of the whole military.
Well, I'll say it's funny because I remember when I was a cadet, I have family history in the infantry, and I even have family that served in the Marines and other branches, the Navy. But when I was a cadet, I wanted to be a helicopter pilot.
Like a few of our classmates here.
Yeah. Well, we have some helicopter pilots. We have some fixed wing pilots. Like just, I think that's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be a pilot because I thought like, wow, being an Apache or a Chinook or like a Black Hawk pilot, like, that's really, really cool. And then when I went to do my optometry exam, so actually I wore glasses and wore contacts growing up. So I knew, okay, the optometry exam, that's going to be a pretty big hurdle for me.
Yeah.
And so when I went and I did that, my depth perception, I didn't meet the standard that was needed for pilots at the time. So I was disqualified from doing that. But the point being is, whether it's pilots or engineers or submariners, there's all kinds of really, really cool functions out there, and you can't do them all. But it's just awesome to like work with, a team where you start talking to someone who is the subject matter expert in that capability or that job role or that function. It's like, wow, what you do is really, really cool. And I'm really glad that we have you here because I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, it's kind of a similar vibe to here, that we have in class. And we'll get into it. But I wanted to follow up on my question saying, I really like that you speak highly of all the branches and all the people in the service. But to be honest, there is some rivalry going on and some trash talk and like who is better than who and whatever. What is your version of it? Like, I mean, come on, you have to give it. It has to be candid.
No, you're
take a swing at them because they're going to be in your seat, And trust me, they won't pull any punches.
That's fine with me. No, I mean, yeah.
What are the typical ones?
I mean, service rivalry, of course, is a big thing. Obviously, being an Army guy myself, and family that went to West Point, I don't particularly love the Navy, especially around Army Navy time. We don't need to talk about this year's results. But even then, I grew up, in one of my really good friends from high school. He went to the Air Force Academy and became a pilot. And then, I have friends who are in the Air Force. And the joke there is, it's not the Air Force, it's the chair force, because
you sit down.
Yeah, they have all the cushy things and they stay in the office.
Yeah.
But again, it's all in good fun. But of course, I'm going to always tout, the Army and what I do is the biggest and the baddest.
Yes.
But no, I mean, again, it's kind of that iron sharpens iron mentality. Everyone just wants to be the best. And, I think that competition is healthy and that's good. And it leads to better outcomes.
Absolutely.
But, at the end of the day, everyone is wearing the American flag on their shoulder. And we're all here to serve each other and, serve the nation.
Clearly, you didn't stay. After 10 and a half years, you transitioned finally.
I did.
Yeah. And then you kind of touched upon that. You were going through some doubt, some difficult time in 2023. Probably was your last deployment as well. Was the decision to leave and to pursue something else, or an MBA, for example, one of those things that was going through your head then? And then how did that materialize? How did you make that decision?
Yeah. Well, I knew at that time that I was going to get out of the military. Going into the military, I knew that I likely wouldn't make it a career. Just personally, I just felt like 20 years is a long time, and I have a lot of things that I, A, am interested in, and B, just I don't know enough about that I want to learn about. I'm a pretty curious and inquisitive person. So with that, I felt, a career probably wasn't going to be something that I elected to do. And then with that, yeah, as I got through my military career, kind of approaching that 10-year mark, I felt more strongly about that. And especially in the service, my personal belief is that, if your heart's not in it, you should probably, take a knee or get out and really step to the side and allow someone else to serve. And that's not to say that every day is going to be, the best day ever, and you're going to have, a peachy and flowery day, especially in the military, a lot of hard times. But on aggregate, I felt that if I wasn't truly passionate about staying in and serving our country and, my brothers and sisters in arms, then I was probably doing them a disservice. And so I felt that, yeah, I needed to get out and really step aside.
But that doesn't necessarily mean to do an MBA.
No, it doesn't. And
then
so
how did that happen?
Yeah, and so with that, it's great because as I considered getting out, really at that point, it's a blank, brand new chapter, and I could choose really whatever avenue or path I wanted to pursue, and very much the world is your oyster. But when I considered that and really did a lot of introspection and talked to folks, it's like, oh my gosh, there are a lot of oysters. How do I pick? So for me, I felt an MBA was just an awesome opportunity. One, to give myself a little bit of runway and really figure out, recalibrate what I'm interested in, what I'm good in, what I kind of want to pursue. And then two, it just goes back to that learning aspect. I thought it would be a great way to learn from just an excellent community. You talk about not only the faculty and the admin and the courses, but awesome classmates.
Thank you.
And that has not disappointed, and that's truly something that has been absolutely incredible.
And so you make a decision, you're like, okay, let me go do an MBA, maybe to figure it out, to rediscover myself, if you will.
Yeah.
Another chapter of that. What was the process for school selection? I want to go piece by piece through this admission process, so we can keep it also quick and a lot of back and forth. Yeah.
No, for sure. So first and foremost, I said, hey, I have really, one opportunity to pursue an MBA. So let's swing for the fences and let's go to, a challenging program that's going to, push me and help me learn, grow, and develop. So I set my sights on, some of the top programs in the country. And then two, as far as location, I tried to pick something outside of Nashville. At the time I was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And I absolutely love Nashville. Some of my best friends are still there. I miss them. I miss the city dearly. But again, for me, personally and professionally, I just kind of for personal reasons, just I needed a new fresh start. I just really needed to dive into something that was going to be entirely different and allow me to
Yeah.
just kind of have that, fresh chapter of, again, like reinventing myself, kind of just reigniting like what it is that I'm interested in, and really like allowing me to dive wholly into this next chapter of who I want to be over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
And that informed your decision of which universities to apply to.
That's how I kind of identified like where I should apply. So I picked, several programs there to apply to. And then there were some other reasons too, as far as like, just kind of career ambitions, which again, I don't have any of that figured out now, but
Same.
yeah, yeah. But just like, hey, what kind of like 3 or 4 hypotheses would I enjoy testing, and what programs are going to support those? And then as far as like a location, where would be a really cool spot to live
Yeah.
for 2 or
Yeah.
so years.
So what was the selection? Which universities did you select?
Which did I apply to, or which was I accepted into?
No, which ones were the ones that you applied to, if you want to share?
Yeah, so I applied to Harvard, immediately got rejected, which is fine.
Absolutely fine.
Yeah, I'm much happier here. No, I say that in all good fun. But Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, Kellogg, Sloan, UCLA's Anderson, and then Fuqua at Duke.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very
so
interesting stuff.
I shot a pretty large shotgun blast out there.
And this could be helpful for a lot of the audience. For example, why not Booth? Why not Columbia? Why not NYU? Like, because these are some of the bigger names also out there. Like, what was the decision-making process?
Yeah, for me, honestly, it was just talking to the folks at the program, and again, everyone's decision calculus is going to be different, but well, first and foremost, like those are all great programs. I have friends that
Yeah,
have them,
of course.
and they love it. They're crushing it and doing phenomenal things. But I knew a lot of those programs were, and that's not to say that like Harvard or Wharton aren't, for example, but some of those like Kellogg versus Booth, I figured, hey, if I'm applying to a program in the Chicago area, Booth was just like very much like financially heavy. As far as kind of how it teaches things and how it places folks, and I'm just like, I'm not the quant guy at heart. Like I love finance and learning about it and doing all the stuff and things associated with it. But as far as like what I want to go do, I don't see myself like being a finance guy for the next 10 or 20 years.
Yes.
I'm a little bit more outgoing, social, people facing, client facing, kind of creative and entrepreneurial. So I wanted to go to a program that I felt, just talking to folks there, was going to have, just some more of those offerings and opportunities, which is not to say that you can't do that at any of those programs.
Yeah.
But I just felt like culturally,
Yeah.
there was a little bit more there that really appealed to kind of who I am as a person.
Yeah.
And any of the 3 to 5 things that I'm interested in, just provided me a greater breadth of optionality.
And I think that's a very good approach for people to talk to folks who are already in the school, try to figure out what makes sense for them, what are the aspects of each school that kind of fits their trajectory before, and also the things that they want to do after. And I think that's a great process. Right before the interview, you were telling me that you got into Stanford, you got into Sloan, and you were saying something about Wharton. What happened?
So again, like all those programs and so many other programs, phenomenal. For me, I felt my top 2 were Wharton or Stanford, as in the top 2 that I wanted to go.
You wanted to go into.
Yeah, those were my real top 2. Wharton, of course in Philadelphia, my dad's side of the family is there. It would be great to be close to them. And then Stanford, coming out to the West Coast. One, I'd never really done much with the West Coast. I grew up in the Midwest. I spent the 10 years of my military career kind of throughout the Southeast.
Yeah.
And then I have family up in the Northeast, so I felt like it was a new opportunity. But then my younger brother, he's out here, he's in Los Angeles, so being closer to him, I thought would be great. And then just a lot of the cool stuff with the Bay Area and Silicon Valley. But specifically those 2, I felt like culturally, just talking to veterans there and other friends there, as well as alumni, were ones that
Made
really
sense.
made sense to me. And I knew a lot of the vets club at Wharton, just, from having served,
Yeah.
and I just felt like it was a really, really good fit. And I was very fortunate in that they were, you know, super helpful in helping me prepare my application and, my narrative, and just really like polish up like who I was as a candidate to Wharton. And then, post interview, I thought that went well enough. So I felt like
Yeah.
confident-ish,
Yeah.
that I had a decent shot of getting in. Of course, as I'm sure anyone in, the an MBA program can tell you, the whole applications process is just a black box
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
voodoo magic.
Yeah.
But I felt confident enough about my chances. Again, never thought it was a sure thing, but it was funny because, short story. At the time, I was interning at an investment firm in Nashville. Really, really awesome company, like great, great people, and they knew I was applying to programs, so they were super supportive. And one of the partners' daughters had recently gotten into Wharton round one. I was a round two application for all
Okay.
my programs, but everyone was like, "Yeah, that would be great if you both get in." Like, just
Yes.
talk about a massive win for the
Yes. For the
company.
company. Yeah.
And Wharton was unique in that they were the only program to tell you, "Hey, on this specific day, March 26, 2024, I'll never forget it. Uh, that is when we will announce decisions."
Yes.
All the other programs I applied to, it was,
Kind of a window.
yeah,
Yeah.
early March, whatever, late March.
Yeah.
And I remember that morning, I show up to the office. I'm on my computer, and in my little group chat, I'm texting a bunch of veteran buddies of mine, and they're all saying, "Hey, I got my acceptance letter. It came. I'm good to go." I was in the Midwest, Central Time. They were on the East Coast, so I was like, "All right,
Waited. Yeah.
maybe there's a delay. Maybe I'll get mine in an hour." And quickly my hopes kind of dwindled a little bit, and sadly, although it worked out, I was not accepted into Wharton, and I remember feeling completely dejected. I thought, all right, well, if I didn't get into Harvard, I didn't get into Wharton, there's no
No
way I'm
chance.
getting into Stanford. I'm just going to have to figure it out, and
Yeah.
an MBA is not for me. And I had a really good friend here, Ahmed Nasir,
Yeah.
actually. Him and I, we were in fifth group together. We went to the qualification course together. I've known him for a while. Great, great dude. He was here starting his JD MBA program, so he
Yes.
was here a year early. And he texted me that Tuesday, and he said, "Hey, I just got word that Stanford will be releasing their final decision letters, official decision letters, on Thursday. But if you have gotten in, they're going to start calling people today. So keep your phone on you. Like, good luck, man. I'm hoping for the best. It'll all work out." And I remember telling him, like, "Dude, I just got rejected from Wharton. There's no way I'm getting into Stanford." And then I'm sitting in a meeting with the guy I was interning for, and like 3 or 4 hours later, a Palo Alto number flashes across my phone screen, and immediately I just like start sweating through my shirt. I'm like
Yes.
freaking out. I'm like, "They're not gonna call me to reject me, right?"
Yeah.
He ushers me. He's like, "Go, go, go, go,
Yeah.
go take it." And I pick up the phone, and someone from admissions, "Hey, Pat, this is so and so. How are you doing?" And I told him, I was like, "Honestly, I just got rejected from Wharton this morning, so it's been a rough day." And oh my gosh, like I promise you, this is a good phone call. It will only take 5 minutes. And just like this
Yeah.
wave of emotion, just it hit me like
Yeah.
a
It's
pound of
like,
bricks,
yeah.
a ton of bricks. And yeah, just an incredible turnaround. But yeah, I'm fortunate for that call. I'm fortunate to be here.
So it was the same day. So
Yeah, same day.
a
It went
roller
from
coaster.
a pretty rough morning to just
A
one of the
great
best days
one.
of my life.
Yeah.
So
That's why you don't forget that date.
I will never forget it. March 26, 2024.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Um, uh, there are a lot of veterans out there who are thinking the same thing. They want to apply for an MBA program, and from the outset, when you think about the whole body of people who've been serving and come out of the armed forces, it feels like, okay, profiles are pretty similar. Yeah. Uh, you've been there, you've done that. Especially like there was a lot of people. Yeah, it's not a small body of people. How do you differentiate yourself? Like, what is how do you make sure that you have a selling point? How do you make sure you have an edge when you want to submit an application?
Yeah, great question, and an important one at that. I think first and foremost, you need to really understand like who you are and what you want. if you don't have any kind of guidance or narrative, so to speak, you're not going to really have a unique value
Hmm.
proposition for whatever program you're applying to. So I would recommend, yeah, just like a lot of introspection, like who do you want to be? What do you want to do? And that's not to say that you need to know what you want to do 20 years from
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
But when you go to a program, like what are the, 3 or 4 things that you're going to kind of try and pull a thread at? What do you want to test? What do you want to learn? What do you want to go on to achieve? And also, how do you plan to give back to that community to help others do the same? So I think doing that is really important. And that's obviously from, kind of self-study, self-learning, but also networking and talking to folks specifically, from the veteran perspective, veteran clubs, and members there as well as alumni. Really getting a feel for what that program is, and then you can kind of
yeah, yeah,
begin to refine. Okay, what programs am I going to apply to? Because of course, everyone. All right, I'm going to apply to all top 20. No, you're not.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
No, no.
even what I did, like 7 schools. I don't recommend that. That was too many. It was
Hmm.
exhausting. It was a lot.
Absolutely.
Um,
Did you use any help, external
I
help?
had a ton of help. Everything I've done and accomplished in the course of my life, I've had a ton of help.
No, my point is like professional. Like, did you use any
I
consultants, anything like that?
I didn't use professional help, so to speak. I had a core group of 3 friends who I'm very very thankful for, who helped mentor me kind of through the
Hmm.
process.
Were
And
there
then
MBA grads themselves, or were they applying together with you?
one was a former Green Beret MBAer, out now, post
Yeah,
MBA, working now. Another was a really close friend of mine who was a first year at Booth, and then the third was my former boss in the military, and all 3 of
fantastic.
them, very much in my corner and willing to be there to review essays, be a thought partner, kind of help me prepare for interviews or what have you. So to your point, you do need help. You
Yeah, of
need
course. Yeah,
you need someone who can just be an external voice to give
and
you
honest.
candid,
Yeah,
honest, pointed feedback. Um, I know friends who have paid for that. I know friends who have kind of done it on their
yeah,
own, like me. Shooter's choice. You can really do whatever you feel is most beneficial to you,
yeah.
but definitely need help in some form or fashion.
You touched on a point when you said one of the things that you want to think about is how can you give back to the community as a veteran. Might be a challenging question. How do you think actually you can give back to the community? You know, when you come in, for example, if you're an investment banker, you can always say, "Oh, I bring in a lot of knowledge from investment banking, finance. I can talk about the industry and whatever." Or if you're a consultant, so on and so forth. But then, if you're a veteran, a lot of your experiences may not be applicable to a lot of folks here, may not be relatable, and I'm sure almost no one wants to get recruited into the armed forces unless they want to just unless they were there and they want to stay in. So, and I know the answer because I know you, I know what you bring to the table, but I'm just put you on the spot.
Yeah,
What do you
no.
think you bring to the table?
So first, like, let me back up. Kind of that value proposition and how you give back. That isn't singular to like the veterans, as you well know. That's for all applicants. Like, you need to be able to enrich the community in some way,
Absolutely.
shape, or form. And again, everyone serves others in some way or fashion.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be just in the military. Like, people are doing awesome things in all kinds of industries and spaces. So how do you leverage that and really like kind of pay it forward,
Yeah.
pay the lessons learned forward? For veterans in particular, I've been pleasantly surprised how much that the veteran community has to offer at an MBA program, and really, again, I say this like not having served in like corporate America, so to speak, or worked in corporate America, so to speak, but like the veteran voice and the experiences is more powerful than I thought it would be. Um, I very much felt like coming into the MBA program a little bit intimidated. Like, oh my gosh, I have no finance background. I've never interacted with a board. I haven't tried to start my own company.
Hmm.
I've never done a discounted cash flow,
Yeah.
whatever, all the stuff and things. So I felt I was going to be kind of at a disadvantage. But then when you get in here, you realize, okay, sure, like I haven't done some of that. But what I have done is I've worked with awesome dynamic teams of people from all different backgrounds, all different ages, all different skill sets, various countries. I've helped them sort through
Problems.
different
Yeah.
problems,
Yeah.
different challenges. Sure, it doesn't have to be, hey, how do we increase, revenue growth,
Yeah.
or how do we go ahead and secure funding for this initiative? Although, there are various, functions in the military and armed forces that, touch to some of that depending on what office
Yeah.
or department you're working in. But at the end of the day, like everybody in the military, every veteran and service member in some way, shape, or form has been a contributing part of a team, and in a lot of cases, leaders of that team who have been given a very challenging and ambiguous problem
Yeah.
and told to go figure it out. You're in charge of working with your team to develop the systems and processes, whatever metrics are going to allow you to monitor that you're on track, and work to that objective, and really get to yes. That includes working and interacting with all different kinds of stakeholders, not only in your unit, within the larger DoD enterprise, U.S. government,
And sometimes under
international
pressure.
partners. There's just a lot there, a lot of experience that you don't really like think of as being significant value add until you really get here. And it doesn't even have to be like directly applicable. I think back to some of the hard things I've did that, we might have talked about earlier. Sounds good. I kind of, I suffered through having to carry a heavy rock and kind of just trudge my way through whatever kind of crucible event. That isn't going to really have a direct application here. But the fact is that, I know that, hey, I can put my head down. I can work hard. I can figure this out. I can see where it is I want to be, and then backwards engineer that to figure out what I needed to do in order to get there. And I think that's really helped me. And I think a lot of vets would agree in that, like, just the way in which we approach problems and work with other people, communicate with other people to drive to that, has been really, really helpful.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I asked this question, because I bet there are people out there that have that doubt about themselves. What am I going to offer to an MBA program? I'm a soldier or whatever. I'm a captain or whatever. Like, but this is exactly the answer I want to.
I think
hear. Yeah,
that's a very broad brushstroke. There's all kinds of functions and services within the military. You look at our vets community. You look at the vets communities across the country. There are people who have done really, really incredible things.
But I like your approach. You have to think about it, understand what you have done, understand like how you can contextualize it, and then bring that to the table, and that's very valuable. And as I said, I know the answer because I'm interacting with you guys, and I see what I'm taking from these interactions, which is fantastic. But it goes for everyone. Like,
totally.
You can always think, oh, I'm one of the 200 consultants applying to this program. What is my unique differentiator or whatever? The same process applies, like that same mindset, and I really like that.
And I think key to that too is, again, like figuring out, okay, who I am, who I want to be, kind of where I want to work in as far as, post MBA aspirations, just very broadly, of course. But then again, before you even apply to that program, just doing a little bit of that introspection and kind of backwards planning to figure out, okay, if I want to be in this space, what program is going to help me get there? What have I done that's going to help me get into that program? And just being very deliberate about that. It's challenging to get started, and it's challenging to put that on paper. Part of the reason you need kind of that external thought partner, and that help. But once you do that, to your point, it's not specific to veterans. It's anyone, whether you're a consultant or a startup, or you worked in big tech, whatever. Like, you're one of a lot of applicants from that industry or that function applying. So how do you really take what you've done and tailor it to that, with the ultimate goal of, again, communicating and conveying how the experience here at whatever program is going to help you go on to do great things, and how are you going to kind of pay that forward and continue to help others do the same.
How do you're here now?
I know the next question is going to be, I think.
What do you think it is?
You're just going to ask me, like, all right, what do you want to do? How do you want to,
I know that's a tough question. I don't have an answer to that.
All right.
I'm not going to do that to you. This is like game.
I kind of walked myself into that one.
My question is, how do you feel now being here? How is it? Again, the same question I asked you before. You had some expectations getting in. how is it different? Does it what parts of it meet your expectation? What parts go beyond, and what parts kind of lets you down a bit?
I am very, very fortunate in that, again, I came in thinking X, Y, or Z, or A, B, and C, and then I've just been exposed to all the other letters of the alphabet. First and foremost, I'm just very, very fortunate and thankful for the community. Um, Again, what I loved about, like, kind of taking it one step back in the military, as an officer, what I loved about being in my position was that I got to, work with, communicate, and engage teams of awesome, incredibly bright, capable, smart individuals, and really learn about, hey, this is your role on the team. Teach me the ins and
Yeah,
outs of that. Okay, knowing that, I'm also talking to Joe or Becky or whoever, like all the different people, and then taking all that data and then making a well-informed decision,
yeah,
or hopefully the most informed decision at the time. And I feel like that's kind of a similar feeling here at the GSB, and probably just grad school as a whole, is that I came in with a couple things that I wanted to explore, and it's great to actually be able to interact, talk, and learn from people who have gone and done that, and done really well in those areas. And it's even more particularly interesting and rewarding, I would say, because I think there are more people here, kind of going to your question about like what's different. I came in thinking, again, some of that
hmm
intimidation stuff, and those feelings of unease, if you will. Like, as a veteran, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm going to be one of a very few amount of people who feels that way. I felt that everyone here was, coming to earn their MBA. They're going to go back to whatever company, firm, or
yeah,
initiative they were working at, and continue to do great things. But
yeah,
there are so many people pivoting here. So bringing that full circle, it's great to talk to people who have been in that space and can tell me all the great things about it, but also the reasons they're leaving and what they want to go do, taking that and leveraging it and kind of parlaying it
yeah.
into whatever's next for them. So I think what I love most is just, the classmates and just all the different experiences and, great things that I can learn from them. The faculty are great too. Even professors that I haven't taken courses with, you go to like a brown bag lunch or a speaker series, or you see something, posted online that they wrote or contributed
Yeah.
with. They're very welcoming and open to, grabbing a coffee or,
Yes.
talking to you for 20-30 minutes about your thoughts or, something that you might have. Just the community aspect of it is fantastic. And yeah, just the resources here are incredible.
Would you say if you didn't do an MBA, and you had just left the army and then you were working in like a normal job, whatever job that you had, for example, and continued in that, would the transition from the military life to a civilian life been a lot more difficult
I think it would have been.
in terms of identity and all that stuff?
Well, let me say this. I think it would have been for me. I have a bunch of friends who got right out of the army and they went and, are fully employed working now, but they knew at least tangentially or, had some idea of what they wanted to do. I had no idea. So I commend them because they are definitely a step or two ahead of me in the sense of like figuring out what it means
Yeah.
to be an adult and
Yeah.
kind of, go out
Yeah.
and do the stuff and things. I was like, hey, I don't know. I don't know left from right. I have no idea even where to
Same.
start. So
Yeah.
for me, while I did consider that, I just felt it wasn't the personal the right choice for me personally. But yeah, my friends who are out who didn't do an MBA program, they're crushing it. They're loving it. They've pivoted several times. They're moving up, being promoted,
Yeah.
doing awesome things. And I commend them for having the dedication and the determination to really like answer those difficult questions that have taken me a little bit long to answer. But I mean, to your question, if I would have gotten out, like, what would I have done? I don't really know.
Yeah.
That's really hard
Yeah.
to say because I tried to answer that myself and I didn't have a good
No,
answer.
I know. I know. I totally understand. No, that makes sense. I have. Do you feel any sort of like stereotyping um, about yourself or about um, the career you had? Like, do you ever feel that people put you in a box?
I haven't experienced that. No, I think I think Stanford has been
Not
great.
here necessarily. I mean, just generally speaking, like in
Oh,
your.
No, I don't think so. I think people, when they learn or discover that I'm a veteran, they take note of it and, kind of capture it as an experience of mine that, has kind of shaped who I am, and part of my identity. But I don't think there's a inherently, positive or negative influence on, what they think of me. I think, yeah, I think it's just like part of my identity and kind of what has shaped me, just as, anyone else has their own experiences that have contributed to who they are. I'm sure some people think highly of it. Others maybe,
Critical or
question it or maybe, yeah, a little bit critical of it perhaps, but I've never gotten a significantly outward expression of like either like over enthusiasm that you're a veteran and, people just kind of like fawning you over it, or similarly on the flip side of the coin, no significantly or extremely negative, criticisms
hmm
or,
yeah.
whatnot.
You are a part of the U.S. Army. You've been on battlegrounds. War is not easy for no one, by no means. And we are in 2025, and things are still looking bad all over the world, like in different parts of the world in different ways. Um, but you've been there, you've seen it, you've done that, you've been in that environment, you've seen how these things evolve and how these things play out. What is your hope for the country, for the world?
Wow, yeah, tough question.
Or if you would be able to change something, what would that be, or what is your hope?
I'll start. I'll start just kind of with my hope for the country, especially in light of recent elections and changing between administrations. I would hope that we can just get back to finding more common ground. I think right now there's a lot of fraction and division, and that's for everyone. I'm not ascribing it to one party or another, but I think we've just kind of lost sight of, and there are various reasons that kind of go into this, but I think we've lost sight of, at the end of the day, we're all Americans. We're one country, and we need to have the best possible outcome for everybody. So how do we take into account different backgrounds, different thoughts, different X, Y, and Z, to find common ground that is beneficial to as many people as possible. There's never going to be a single solution that is inherently best for every one individual. We can't accommodate everybody and everything. And I say that not to be pessimistic, but like that's just, in my opinion, realistic.
hmm
But yeah, how do we just again put aside some of the various divisions and just find some civility and just kind of love one another and really just focus on what is important, and that is making each and every day better for every one of us.
And internationally?
Internationally as well. I think it's hard to be a steward of that internationally if we're not practicing what we preach. Um, yeah, so I think how do we take that and emulate that and kind of spread that and work with international partners and countries all over the world to do that and find solutions to problems that are afflicting us, whether it's war and conflict, poverty. You talk about people who are famished. They don't have food, they don't have water. Things of that nature. There's a lot of different issues out there, but if we can't be civil and if we can't find common ground, then it's going to be really, really challenging to do that and cooperate and help solve some of those problems.
Yes. No, makes sense. As I said, there was a lot to be talked about. There was a
Yeah,
lot to like
absolutely.
dive in and understand a little bit more, and then have some even tough conversations and see what could be done. Because um, what do we say? Our motto is here: change lives, change organizations, change the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least we can talk a little bit about some of that. Yeah, at some point.
Yeah,
Uh,
but again, it's hard to do that if you can't even do it amongst yourselves.
no, I totally
Yeah,
understand that. I totally, as especially as an outsider coming to
yeah,
this country, with everything that it has to offer, with all the greatness that it has. uh, in itself, still seeing that is pretty interesting to observe it. Yeah.
And of course, like to your point, that's a very nuanced and challenging conversation. Of course, what we're talking here is a very, very wave top discussion that lacks a lot of the nuance, because of course it's far easier said than done. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it that we just don't have the time or opportunity to really explore in this conversation. But yeah, I just think that it's something we need to continue to drive towards.
Yes. Pat, this was amazing.
Yeah.
I had a really good time. I don't know if you had a good time.
I had a great time.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, great to have the opportunity to come onto the podcast and discuss. You've had some great guests, and it's just awesome to see the different backgrounds and kind of pathways to Stanford, and again learn more about the incredible community and classmates that we have here. So I appreciate you providing me the time to share my own experiences.
No, absolutely, man. It was fantastic. I always wanted to talk to you. This was a good opportunity. You're on your journey. You're the Odyssey of your own journey. Let's see where it leads you.
Yeah,
I'm super excited.
I am too. To be determined.
Exactly. Thank you. It was amazing.
I appreciate it.